Brumilda is a high school teacher who teaches English classes. She is known for being very strict with the students and applying severe punishments to those who do not do their homework. The punishments can vary from standing in the corner of the room with donkey ears to cleaning the school's toilet with your toothbrush. If you get a grade lower than 5 in the semester, you will be prevented from leaving the school for a week. You are placed in the library until you learn enough and pass her recovery test. In the year of 1997, she was teaching the third year of high school when something curious happened. Some students from the back of the class were only getting bad grades on her evaluations. That's because they were messing around the whole class and didn't study. So they decided to take revenge on the teacher and teach her a lesson. They had the idea to put poison in a cake and give it to the teacher, hoping to get rid of the problem. At the beginning of the class, one of these miscreants gave it as a way to make amends for the behavior he was showing in the classroom. She was surprised by the miscreant's gesture and accepted the cake. If there was one thing she loved, it was cake, and they knew that. Later in the teacher's room, she ate a piece. It was very tasty, and she ate another one. Shortly after, she started to feel strange, fell to the floor, and began to thrash about. Foam started coming out of her mouth, and her eyes turned as red as fire. School staff saw and called an ambulance, which quickly took her to the hospital. She was between life and death, clinging to the fragile thread of life that kept her in this world. After 2 weeks, she returns, only different. Her skin was whiter, and when she passed by people, anyone nearby would start shivering from the cold. The miscreants were perplexed when they saw her. They knew things were about to get crazy for them, so they grabbed their backpacks and ran to escape the room. But suddenly the door closes.
Where do you think you're going? Today we will have a surprise test. You had 2 weeks to study while I was in a coma.
The kids knew they were going to screw up on the test, so they signed their names and handed it in, hoping to get out of there quickly. But she didn't let them, and they had to wait for everyone else
to finish. You've already given up on having a future? You intend to be crazy-headed vagabonds who commit crimes to get rid of those who bother you. I realize something, that people like you only learn one way. I will apply my new teaching method, which is called eternal learning. You will stay here forever, watching all my classes, learning for years, so that one day you become better people.
And so they all froze for a second and stayed in that classroom until today, watching over and over again the classes of teacher Brumilda. Guys, I launched another comic in the store, Cartoon Cat vs. Siren. It's a story that takes place in a land destroyed by these bizarre creatures, and it shows the fight between these two titans. Who will be the winner of this battle? It's the big question we all want to know. And if you don't know, we have the story of Leo Augusto React and Grandma in an adventure against the forces of evil. Children in the neighborhood are mysteriously disappearing. What could be happening? Will Leo and Grandma be able to solve this mystery? We have other comics too. Add this WhatsApp from the store and we will be serving you. Jeff was a simple boy who lived well with his family. Far from any confusion, however, the boy's father ended up receiving a job offer, so they had to live in another city. There they met their new neighbors, a couple who invited Jeff's family for a birthday party that would happen in a few days. They accepted the invitation because they could get to know the people there better, right? The long-awaited day has arrived. On the day of school, Jeff and Lou went to the bus very excited, but ended up being surprised to see 3 thugs charging a fee to stay on the bus, being forced to flee from that place. Jeff got furious and attacked the boys with punch, kick, and bro, everything he had the right to, but due to the aggressions, the two had to get out of there, dude. When they got home, They decided to hide what happened. However, the police arrived at their house in order to find out who was responsible. Lil felt sorry for his brother, so he told the agents that it was his fault for having assaulted the boys. He unfortunately got a year in jail for bodily harm. After what happened, the day of the party had arrived, so Jeff's parents decided to take him to the birthday to try to relieve the tension that hovered in that family. When they arrived at the celebration, Jeff noticed the three thugs from the bus. They were children of the neighbors, hosts of the party. They were wanting revenge, bro. So, at a moment that he moved away from the bathroom wall, they surprised Jeff by hitting his head with a vodka bottle. They kept hitting him, and Jeff ended up losing the notion of what was right and wrong. He became extremely violent, retaliated all the blows, and blew up the boys. Seeing that Jeff's face was soaked in vodka, the third one threw a lighter and his face was completely burned. But he ignored the fire and went on to blow up the third one. Soon after, he fainted, falling with his head in the toilet. Jeff and the others were taken to the hospital. They put a plaster mask on him to heal the boy's face faster. The three sons of those neighbors were already gone, but Jeff managed to survive after a year in serious condition with his messed up face. On that day, he was released to visit his family, and he was escorted to his house. He was wearing an electronic ankle bracelet so he wouldn't run away. When he took off the plaster, the relatives were shocked by the boy's completely messed up face. Finally, after finishing dinner, the boy's mother went to say goodnight. However, she only found Liu sleeping in the room, looking for Jeff. She found the boy cutting his lips in the bathroom. He was trying to look more handsome, but he couldn't. Desperate at the horrifying sight, the woman runs to find her husband to tell him what happened, but ended up finding her husband lifeless. Screaming for help, she also became a target of Jeff. Then, hearing the sounds coming from the room, Leo slowly opened his eyes while lying in bed. Jeff remained on top of him, saying the following words. "Shh, go to sleep." Since then, he became known as Jeff the Killer, the one who invades people's lives and makes them sleep forever. Tom is a young man who was a big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, until one day the mailman left a package at his door. It was a CD labeled Sonic.exe and a letter signed by his friend Kyle, who hadn't been heard from in 2 weeks. In the letter, he begged Tom to destroy the disc before it was too late. Tom thought it was a prank and started to play. When he pressed start, the opening screen changed for just a fraction of a second before the screen went black. The image that appeared in that frame was the game's opening screen, bizarrely distorted with a dark sky, red water, and where it should have said SEGA 1991, it said SEGA 666. To make matters worse, man, Sonic himself had changed. His eyes were completely black and bleeding. Upon choosing the only available character, Tails, Tom continued to find more evidence that there was something wrong with the game. There was a large number of dead animals. Then he finds Sonic at the end of the level. When Tails tried to get his attention during a scene by touching his shoulder, Sonic's eyes opened. "Hello, do you want to play?" In the next level, Hide and Seek, Tom witnessed Sonic with blood in his eyes literally flying after Tails, disappearing quickly and appearing in front of the fox, striking it hard, and the screen went black. "You're too slow, wanna try again?" After playing with Knuckles and brutally losing to the bizarre Sonic, Tom decided to take a break from the game and lie down, but in his rest he was tormented by nightmares. He saw himself inside the game and the demonic Sonic came flying after him and caught him. Tom woke up in a cold sweat and decided to return to the game, this time choosing Robotnik, and continued with the game. The little devil teleported in front of the Tinique robot and the screen went black again. "I am God." So Tom gave up on playing this bizarre game. He was very scared and decided to lie down. But to his surprise, he sees his Sonic plush toy on his bed all bloody. Toninho was a boy who was always playing games in his room and only ate fast food. Every day the kid would order some McDonald's and other stuff and have a party. Whenever his family asked him to do something at home, Toninho would say he was studying and couldn't, but in reality he was playing Free Fire and other stuff. He had gotten a pet fish last Christmas but didn't care much for the animal. His parents always put the food for the fish and cleaned the aquarium because their son was always busy. Until Toninho started locking his room door. He didn't want his parents coming in, you know. So whenever they asked him if he had fed the fish, he would say yes. In reality, they would throw the French fries to the fish. Other times, leftovers that fell from the sandwiches. The little fish was getting stranger and stranger, with a purple color, and it was getting deformed, until one day, when he came back from school, the little fish was lifeless. Without a hint of remorse, he took the aquarium and dumped it in the toilet, flushing it down. He filled it with tap water and put it back in his room, right? He continued his life as if nothing had happened. The next night, while playing, he ordered esfiras and felt a bizarre nausea. To his surprise, he vomited the little fish, identical to the one he had killed, straight into the aquarium. His mother entered and asked if he was okay. He composed himself and said he was cool. After she left, Toninho observed the fish, identical to the dead one. Confused, he went back to his chair and ordered the sandwich. But again, he regurgitated another little fish. My God, now he's scared. There are 2 little fish swimming in his aquarium. He goes to the living room and stays there. He fears he might be cursed, so he ends up sleeping on the couch. The next day, he wakes up and goes to have his breakfast. He vomits 2 fish onto the plate. His parents see that and panic. They rush to the doctor to check what was happening with Toninho. But after some tests, nothing abnormal was found in their son. Toninho stayed like this for days and lost a lot of weight. He couldn't eat anymore. It seemed like all his vitality was being converted into creating a fish. Until 1 week later, Toninho was gone, and his aquarium was full of fish, swimming happy and peaceful. On a dark and stormy night, Woogie, an employee at a toy company, was with the production manager testing the newest plush product. The company's sales were plummeting, and this would be the last chance to launch a new toy. The directors wanted a more appealing toy, one that had more life. But in the last tests, the plush toy ended up getting out of control. It went after the production manager in a hostile way. However, it suddenly stopped, and out of nowhere, its head exploded. The shards ended up hitting Wang's arm, and he was unable to work. For some time, to make matters worse, the company was heavily in debt and would need to make some cost cuts. This meant laying off employees. Luckily, Wang would keep his job.
But he was already expecting the worst. However, after a week,
he has an unexpected visit. The production manager had some things to say to him. There was a strategy that would make them successful in creating the smart plush. And they would rebuild the company. They would be promoted and make a lot of money. He just needed Wang's help for that. At the factory, the production manager said he was happy to have him there, and that the toy would be named Woog. Since he was one of the few employees who stayed at the company, Woog was honored for over 20 years of recognition at that company. As soon as he signed some papers donating the name to the product, they tied him up and began the experiments. There was a clause in small print that allowed the company to do whatever they wanted with him. They transferred all of Wang's organs to the doll, trying something never before seen in the industry. And when our friend realized it, He was no longer the same as before. The thinking doll was made, ready to revolutionize the toy market. He tried to escape from there countless times, but without success. They always caught him trying to run away. And they would correct the guy, or rather, the toy. They brainwashed him, showing images over and over again in order to create a new behavior for the doll. And gradually, the old Wook disappeared and his new personality emerged. And he became Huggy Wugg. On a sunny morning, a family is going on a trip to enjoy their vacation in Acapulco, when for a moment he looks at his son in the back seat to say something. Everyone is very excited. However, that moment was interrupted by a truck coming in the opposite direction, hitting them head on. The car flipped over and only the child seemed to be conscious. Soon after, what appeared to be nurses arrived and collected the entire family. The father and mother had serious physical injuries. They began to be treated by the doctors. Their health condition is very serious. The father can't stay awake and ends up passing out. The last image he records is his son in the arms of a doctor.
The mother, on the other hand, is more relieved as the boy was unharmed. He didn't suffer any kind of injury.
However, contrary to what he imagines, this is not a hospital, but Playtime Co., a toy company that is now venturing into creating smart dolls. He is facing imminent death. He won't be able to survive if he continues like this. However, the proposal that is offered to stay alive is to accept going to another body, a completely different body, and become part of that company. This is the only way to continue with her son. So it is done. She is sedated and the procedure is done. And so the mother becomes Mommy Long Legs, a doll that loves all children, has huge legs and arms that welcome the little ones. Don't they say a mother's heart always has room for one more? So her arms always have room for one more child. As promised, she sees her son again. The boy is fine. In addition, she notices several other children in the place according to them. It's an area for testing toys. And since she is now one, nothing better than interacting with the children, right? Little does she know that they are analyzing all the movements, not only hers but theirs as well. And so the days went by. Every week a child did not return to the place. They claimed they were doing other activities with other toys. Until one particular day they took your son. This drove her crazy. She spent a long time searching those rooms, tried to go to one corner and another but couldn't. She searched for a long time. However, what she found was only pain. The son she knew no longer existed. He and all the others had been turned into toys as well. And to make matters worse, they were taken from her. All she wanted was to stay alive and watch her son grow up. But now, Playtime Call has taken that away from her. Claudinea's family had just moved to a new house. They didn't have a wardrobe, as the old one had been destroyed by the rains. Then, in a conversation in the new neighborhood, Irena offered her a 10-door wardrobe. Claudinea accepted the gift and put it in her house. Wow, now there will be a place to store all the family's clothes. But after a week, she discovered that Irena was involved with black magic. And she greatly coveted the house and yard that Claudinea and her family had rented. Irena had this place where she was messing with these magics right next to Claudinea. And she was just coveting, right? So she became suspicious of the wardrobe, thinking that the furniture could have something bad. I don't know, right? So she decided to pass it on. But when she went to take it to the place, the woman who owned the orphanage saw the wardrobe, made a very strange face, made the sign of the cross and rejected it, gave a lame excuse there that there was no room for such a large wardrobe. Donna Claudinea didn't quite understand what was happening there, but this already showed that that wardrobe was not a common piece of furniture. What do you mean, dude? Woman crosses herself when she sees the thing. strange things started to happen. Donna Claudinea's family life started to get worse, dude. There started to be fights at home. They lost their jobs in the same week, her and her husband, until Donna Claudinea's mother found a couple from another neighborhood who had just gotten married and were setting up their home. They needed a wardrobe, so on the same day she already dispatched it. 5 months later, Donna Claudinea's mother arrived at her house, right? Saying that the people to whom they gave the wardrobe fought a lot and lost everything, from their job to the house they lived in. All that was left in their life was the wardrobe, and it was used to build a wooden shack. They lived in misery and didn't progress in life at all. It wasn't certain that that property was cursed with bad things, right? Until seeing the situation of this family. Have you noticed that every school rings an alarm at certain times of the day? And when that happens, something like recess time and also time to go home happens, right, my partner? These are basic signals for everyone to situate themselves in time and what is to come. Knowing this, a creature began to take advantage of this school environment to be able to feed, make victims and fill the belly, right? Known as Siren School, this monster from the Siren lineage settles in schools and simulates these signals that we are used to hearing, confusing the students who study there, and even the teachers, causing great confusion. The teacher is teaching there, right?
And out of nowhere, the bell rings.
The children think it's recess time and go crazy looking for fun. However, they are warned by the authority there to return. The alarm went off by mistake, says the principal. However, it is at this moment that Siren School drinks its victims, the stragglers from the crowd who are passing by there. It is estimated that the species of siren head has managed to adapt to this school environment and that it is reproducing rapidly in cities. It can also release fog, making visibility poor, and thus it is easier for him to capture the stragglers in his belly, you know? The way for you to survive if your school has a siren skull creature is to avoid walking alone. Always walk with at least about 5 friends there together. My partner, stay away from poles, masts, or anything that looks like a pole there with a siren, you know?
This way you'll have more chances of surviving if you get caught, scream, and make a lot of noise. This creature doesn't want to draw attention to its action, right?
This can compromise your performance at school there. So my friend, be careful there, with the Siren School. This creature is very bizarre. Hello my friends, this is Leo, and today we're going to meet a sinister creature. That's causing big problems there, right? In the lives of children and teenagers who like to play a handheld video game. That's right, recent cases show the pattern in the attacks suffered by these people. From an age range that varies from 8 to about 19 years old, all report that they found a handheld video game started to play. This new game never before seen or even reported. It's like you're inside the game and you have to defeat other enemies if you're losing. With the life bar almost ending, you are offered the possibility to use your own blood. To be able to recover the character's life, if you accept, a wire is plugged into your vein that will make this conversion. If you reject and die with the character, you will return to the beginning of the game and will need to play everything again. It is not known exactly what kind of device this is and how this video game appears to these people, but the relatives of these victims say it didn't seem strange. Nowadays, it is normal for a child or teenager to spend hours playing, but they start to find it strange, right? Because they were extremely addicted, and they never stopped playing. The most bizarre thing for Dona Maria das Dores there was to see her son plugged in losing blood and becoming anemic. She thought that game was satanic, sent by Koi Sarui to destroy her family. Since then, her son was forbidden to play, and when she went to destroy the device, it was no longer there. It disappeared. Whatever this portable game is, we can observe a parasitic pattern there that sucks the blood feeding and entertains the host. So be careful my friends, if you see game blood, do not play under any circumstances.